Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one is an advent event that's going on, and I do feel like you need to know a few things. But before I get into it, first things first, the Wind Malicious Raid has been launched. I've only done like 2 fights of it, but I do know some info about it where it's kind of bugged right now because if you get the weapon to drop outright, then it causes the game to like glitch out because it acts like the weapon hasn't been added to that raid. If you trade for the weapon, I think it's fine, but for some weird reason, that weapon and a few other wind ones will not get the second final break, which is the 5th star. They call it Final Break 2 in game, but we nicknamed it Ultimate Limit Break or ULB. But either way, you can't get that you can't get that 5th star on it, as far as I know, and getting the weapon outright just locks you up in the raid. So up to you if you really want to do the raid or not right now. They've already done a hot fix on the fire one, which had the same issue but with a more common drop. People have called that a rice cooker as a joke, but it's that little metal looking thing that all the malicious raids will end up dropping. It's the thing you trade for the accessories. But honestly, just wait until they do a maintenance or a compensation for that at this point if you're going to do it, because no real need to rush. The next malicious isn't out until another month, and then on top of that too is the fact that again they're having plenty of issues just implementing crap lately, so I don't even know. But second thing I want to mention too, anybody that wanted to save up their resources for pulling, don't do it right now. The characters are very good, but they're permanent. There's going to be some limited characters on the way, I think, the very next banner as a start. But even more so, there's 2 crossover events later down the line, and you probably want to save for them if anything else, because those crossovers, they have some pretty strong characters, but they're not coming back, as far as I know. So far, no crossovers had any further repeats, if they even got a repeat to begin with, so anybody that wants some pool priority, definitely save it for the crossovers. The limited characters that's coming up are very, very strong. I could see somebody pulling for them too, but the crossovers would be first priority. But anyways, this event, it's an advent event, of course, normal stuff. You gotta basically fight on your own, fight with certain rarities or elements in order to get extra rewards. Also, the weapon, both of them actually, might be worth getting, depending on how far you are. The first one that can final break definitely is worth getting. At least until you start getting the Guardian weapons, maybe. But I would probably sit up and hold onto a weapon like that regardless if you get the Guardians, because what it does. The second one that doesn't final break, Guardian weapons can replace that, but you may want to hold on to that at least until you get Guardian. Now, of course, same usual pool priority, the SSR stuff, the gacha tickets, the jewels. Get as much stuff as you can, honestly. The only exception is, of course, the weapon EXP orbs and the Idolans EXP orbs. You don't need to trade for those. Just go and grind the ultimate caves for those. I've personally dumped about 1400 AP to go get my first fire weapon that had 5th star. Yes, it's a lot of AP you have to spend in order to get the experience points for it, but it is very easy to do that if you just have some semblance of an auto grind team. Like even just Solomon can do it on their own. But the usual stuff, of course, the SSR stuff, the jewels and all that's first priority. The pool tickets too, because more gacha pools doesn't hurt. I definitely need one more SSR ticket, the 1/10 SSR. If I get that, I get my 10th one. So that's the priority for me, and I suggest you guys do the same thing because it's like guaranteed SSR when you collect enough. As for the as for what the SSR weapons and all that do, we'll go over that a little bit later. Starting off though, it's been like this for a long time. No heroic fight for this event. It's only for the event raids. However, they have released Heroic Record, which has past heroic fights. So, that said, you can go back and challenge them if you want to look for a heroic fight. It's not a bad replacement compared to this. Now, for Ragnarok Plus, you have to be rank 100. You can challenge it twice a day, of course. But the other stuff, you have to be specific ranks for as well. It's not too hard to get to rank 100, honestly. You can do that in one day if you try really hard, so that's something to know. But, as for the fights itself, light element, so if you don't have a dark team prepared, use whatever. You're not at a disadvantage. You never are. But as for the fight itself, I'm going to start with the Ragnarok info because everybody should be able to do Ragnarok pretty quickly at this point. If you farmed, if you know what to farm and all that. I've done gads on that too. But 3 million HP for the Ragnarok fight. When it does normal mode, it's burst in normal mode, it is single target and it gives defense up to itself. In raging mode, it is a random 3-hit nuke. The thing about random hits is the fact that if it does all just pow on one character, they can take a lot of damage. So take some precaution against that if you're doing that intentionally or just worried it might get wiped out. Now, as for the triggers, every turn that's like every 5th turn, so pay attention to your turn counter, it's going to randomly hit 3 times just as if it was in raging. So be careful of that one. When its HP is at half or less, it's going to put a special effect on itself to where anytime when its orbs is not full or stun, it will deal an AoE hit. So once a special effect kicks in, you'll have to pay attention to its orb count as well as its turn count. So keep that in mind. Anytime the orbs is not full and it's not in stun, it's going to AoE hit the whole team. So again, be careful of that. Now then, going into Ragnarok Plus, first enemy 2.5 million HP. It ups its sorry, I'm having a brain fart. It's evasion. I don't know why it was so hard to say that. It ups its evasion, which is permanent, every time it gets full orbs. So I believe it might stack it. Well, no, it's 50% or less, 50% or less HP, and it's only one time. Sorry. What might keep piling onto you is the blind, because when its orbs is full, it's going to AoE blind you. And while it lasts 4 turns, it's only got 3 orbs. So again, it can keep stacking its duration. So you'll just have blind on you forever if you're not removing it or killing it fast enough. So keep that in mind. Second enemy, 3 million HP, 1 orb. If you use a burst, or actually it says if it next action after an enemy burst, so I guess it's after it uses a burst. Sorry about that. This wiki is a little bit weird with that sometimes. But it's either after you burst or after it bursts, it will just AoE nuke you. So be careful of that. It's got 1 orb, so it's going to be using its single target nuke pretty often. Third enemy, 2.8 million HP, has the same single target nuke whenever its orbs are full. When its HP is half or less and it has maximum orbs, it's going to randomly hit 3 times. Nothing too special about that at this point. It's just be careful if it piles on one character. Now, as for the boss itself, everything I mentioned, pretty much the same. It just has 4 times the HP. It's now 12 million instead of 3 million. So again, use that same strategy. Now, this is just usual stuff for the list too. I do have to point this one thing out though. Right now, we only get like about, I think it's about 15,000 skill experience points. I think that changed from before, because I don't know if it's this advent or the next one. But before we used to get like 1,500 skill experience points. We get a lot more this time. So be very sure to try and stock up on that. Skill experience is pretty uncommon until you start getting to the higher raids. And even then, it's still a slow increase over time. Now then, as for the Idolans, you may or may not want it for the summon effect, because the summon effect isn't bad for certain fights, it just depends. And that is a combo rate decrease on enemies. The main effect is the main reason why you take it, because light elemental attack plus 40%, light characters get a triple attack rate increase. This is very good for starting characters, or starting players, I mean, because of the fact that you want your triple attacks to go off much more often than double attacks. So there you go, and the stats aren't bad either for it. So that's something to know. As for the weapon that final breaks, it's a bow. Interestingly enough, if you put this on a soul, it does additional damage after they burst. So as far as I know, there's only like one line that even uses, no, two lines that use bows. So if they burst either one of those two lines, it's the Shingen and Yorimitsu line and the Hurricane Parashurama line. I think they're the two that use bows. But if you use any souls along those lines and you put this on them, they'll deal extra damage after they burst. So it's like the burst damage and then an additional hit right after. We call that burst echo. And that's not a bad thing to really have, especially on Yori, because well, I wouldn't say Yori, I'd say more Shingen. Because Shingen fills up burst gauge pretty fast. If you already have Yori, you might as well just use Yori's weapon. Unless you just don't have it. But the main gimmick for this, large defender, medium assault. This is better than any of the weapons you will get from the ultimate raids. So keep that in mind. Event weapons are definitely worth having at this point because they do more than what the ultimate raids are. Especially if it's a large defender, because it will hold you for a long time. Now, once you start getting into malicious raids, you absolutely will not need a large defender from these things. But again, it can help. Now, as for the other weapon, it is a weaker version of the Guardian weapon from Hagif. It is large vigor and small ascension. Now, I would say the large vigor is actually worth, but only if it would have been able to final break. Because if I remember correctly, it is like small vigor from the Hagif staff. But the thing is, vigor is still helpful because it's another multiplier. This is the earliest access you're really going to get to it before the Guardian raids for light characters, so you might as well have this until you start getting that Hagif staff. And the stats on it are still pretty good, despite the fact that it cannot final break. So that's something to know. If you do put it on your soul, it's going to give them a light elemental attack boost, which it doesn't seem that great on its own, but keep in mind that elemental attack boost will still give more, like, a better chance of landing debuffs on enemies, and it also will increase your overall damage output too. So that's something to know. Elemental changes not only affect attack or defense or whatever, depending on how you do it on an enemy, but it also affects debuff rates, so keep that in mind. Now then, the last thing to mention, they don't have the elements right here, but I think it's fire you're supposed to use for this, because light and fire are usually paired together, but I think it's fire you're supposed to use for this. If you're well, no, that's a raid event. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the wrong thing. It's clearing with certain rarities, which raid event also had too, but this one's clearing with certain rarities. You clear expert and ultimate with SR below. You clear Ragnarok with R rarity Kamihime. You clear Ragnarok Plus without using an elixir. So that's what you're supposed to do for these event materials. You can still just use an R rarity team for all three of those, for expert, ultimate, and Ragnarok, if you really want to do anything about it. And I did quickly mention elemental effects and how they affect debuffs. Keep in mind that when you're going up against enemies, advantage will do that too. So if you are looking to debuff the boss and all that, you're going to have the worst chance if you use a light team against the light boss. So that's something to pay attention to. Same time, they'll have a lower chance of debuffing you. So the enemies that deal like blind and all that, they'll have a less chance of doing it. But anyways, that's all for this. Sorry it's a little bit sloppy because I was reading a few things and then like a few things I thought of something differently, but I did try to correct myself on that. But anyways, that's all for this. Expect within the next few days for me to have the guide for the fire malicious raid and maybe even the wind one. But I've got some other videos I got planned on deck. I've still got to upload a previous heroic fight that I cleared. I still have to upload an attempt at the wind malicious raid. And on top of that, I still have to upload Tower of Malice. So there's a lot of videos on deck right here. And I'm kind of sorry about this. I did forget about the 2,500 subscriber video. I'll be working on that and trying to get that up as well. So you're looking at roughly like 5 or 6 videos on the way, possibly more. So keep that in mind. It's going to take a moment to get all those out. Plus, I'm kind of transitioning into my own thing, so there's a few IRL matters I have to take care of. So that said, I'm trying to get a lot of this out of the way. So expect like maybe 1 or 2 videos a day for maybe the next week or so, because I'm going to try and get, like I said, roughly 6-7 videos out. So that's something to know. But anyways, that's all for this. And again, if you are trying to attempt the malicious raids, the fire one has been fixed. The wind one is the one screwing up now. Consider it like the 3rd raid gel so far. But anyways, and it doesn't have that much of a chance to gel you either, because unless you're doing like MVP, you're not going to see too many weapon drops. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this will come soon, and take care.